Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vedas, Part 5, Vedas and Tamil Nadu. It is my sincere opinion that the world is better off with the Vedam than without it for individual and collective well-being. This enormous capital wealth is now in a state of being ignored into oblivion through utter carelessness and indifference. My constant worry is about the ways and means of reviving interest in the Vedas to make it flourishing and thriving. For that, I keep doing something or the other, like start the Veda Rakshanam Trust as a fund for providing stipend for scholars of Vedas on retirement. But this is not the responsibility of this Matam and some such organizations only, but the duty of all of us too, not on any compulsion, but on our own volition. We should all be actively involved in re-establishing this land as the home of Veda. I am saying this especially for Tamil Nadu. This part of the earth is where the tree of Veda became deep rooted and proliferated into a forest of Veda to be known as Veda Aranyam, not just a village or city, but the whole of South Indian archipelago. It was not simply an exaggeration on the part of Bhartiyar when he sang Vedam Nirainda Tamil Nadu, but that is how this part of the world used to be. From the first Sangha period, everywhere Veda Velvi has been praised sky high, describing how the smoke from those yagashalas used to reach for the skies. The Pandya kings, who staunchly supported conduct of a lot of Vedic yagyas, were proud of bearing titles such as Palyaga Sale Mudukudumi Peruvalidi. About their capital Madurai, they used to claim greatness on two counts. One was that because using cattle for repeatedly walking over the harvest ford, separating the grain from the husk, will not serve the purpose. They would make elephants do the job. This self-praise was about their inviolable standards of self-sufficiency on the food front. The second one was the boast about how they asked to wake up in the mornings by people of Madurai, saying, in Chera's capital of Vanji and Chola's capital of Urayur, they wake up to the sounds of crowing of the cocks, whereas in our Madurai, we people wake up to the sounds of Veda Gosham. For your information, Pariyapetal's song being quoted with this above meaning is as follows. நான் மறை கேள்வி நவில் குரல் எடுப்ப ஏம வின்றியில் எழுதல் அல்லதை வாழிய வஞ்சியும் கோழியும் போல கோழியின் ஏழாதம் பேரூர் துயிலே. In Tirukural, the ways of the Vedas are spoken of with obvious pride. In Vedas, Pancha Mahayagya is spoken about as part of the Nitya Karma Anushtana. The daily offering of oblations is supposed to be done for 5 set of life forms. They are Devatas, Rishis, Pitrus, meaning in that order, gods, deities, Rishis and souls of departed ancestors. These 3 offerings are rather indirect. The 4th set is for living things such as birds, animals, and even ants and insects. Before eating the day's meal, you offer to crows, domestic animals, and so on. Even the decorative artistic design known as kolam done on the ground was with colored powdered rice so that it can be food for sparrows, miners, and ants. Then the 5th end of the Pancha Mahayagyam was for the visitors known as Atithi. Vedas demanded that the visitor should be treated as God in human form, Atithi Devo Bhava. Now listen to Thiruvalluvar. Tenpulattar Deivam Virundu Okkaldan Enrangu Ayambulattar Ombal Thalai. Thiruvalluvar is talking about the Pancha Mahayagya in the Tamil language. Let us look at another Tirukural. If the king fails in his duties, it will affect the government overall. But religious activities wise, it will adversely affect the cows and Brahmins. The reasons why these two are being bracketed together for specific mention is due to the fact that it is the cow's milk, ghee, and the dry cow dung cakes which are all important for conduct of yagyas, and the Brahmins are those who conduct these. So a prayer is made at the end of all such functions that the king may be successful in his endeavors. Let people be happy. Let cows and Brahmins be well cared for, and so on. Tiruvalluvar is expressing exactly this very sentiment, saying that if the king's rule fails, the society will be deprived of the benefits accruing from the cows and Brahmins. அப்பாயன் குன்றும் ஒரு தொழிலர் நூல் மாரப்பர் கோவலன் கவன் எனின். The first two words, அப்பாயன், kundrum, means the usefulness of cows will lessen. Next, aru tholilar is a literal translation of the Sanskrit phrase for Brahmins as shat karma nirataha, meaning those having 6 responsibilities. Those 6 responsibilities are namely doing Sandhya Vandanam thrice daily in the morning, before sunrise in the day, before noon, and in the evening before sunset. Adhyayanam and Adhyapakam and Japam, meaning learning and teaching Vedas and doing Japam of repeating the mantra, or what the Christians call doing the rosary. Conduct of yagas, that is Yajanam and Yajanam, meaning conducting yagnas on their own and for the sake of others. Devata Pujanam, that is chanting prayers to God. Danam and Pratigraham, meaning to give dakshina when you conduct yagam on your own and receive dakshina when you conduct it on behalf of others, and also take care of birds, animals in your locality and visitors to your home, together known as Vaishvavedam. The above quote is from Manusmriti, which has been referred to by Tiruvalluvar, saying that these activities will diminish or be adversely affected if the king fails in his duties to govern. This is another Dharma Shastra book known as Parasara Smriti, in which the daily the Brahmins are given slightly different as Sandhya Snanam Japo Homam Devadanam cha Pujanam Adityam Vaishvadevam cha Shatkarmani Dine Dine. One is Sandhya Vandanam, that should be done after due bathing. A Brahmin should never be afraid of taking a cold water bath. Preferably, he should take 3 times bath, one in the morning, Pratha, Snanam, second in the noon, Madhyanikam, and then in the evening before sunset, known as Sayam Sandhya Vandanam. In Sanskrit, the words in the sentences could be in any order, while the meaning is accepted in a reasonable order. So, though here it is given as Sandhya Snanam, Snanam should precede Sandhya. Nowadays, arguing for the sake of arguments, light-hearted comments and innuendos, especially where inappropriate, is on the increase. Adi Shankara, in his final Upadesha of Sopana Panchakam says, Dushtarkatsu Viramyatam, meaning refrain from flippant remarks, especially when discussing the very respectable Vedas. Irreverence and cheekiness should be avoided. There is nothing wrong in clarifying one's doubts, but to give oneself unlimited freedom of expression may not be in order. The reason why instead of being Snanam Sandhya, it is given the other way is due to the fact that for a Brahmin more than any other karma, Sandhya Vandanam is the most important one. So, while talking about karma, Sandhya has been given the pride of place. Out of the six duties of a Brahmin, justifying the epiph- epithet Shatkarma Niratha. First is the Sandhya Snanam. Second is the Japam. Remember in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that among all yajnas he is Japa. Yagnanam Japosmi. That is Japa of mantra given to you by a guru. It could be Gayatri Mantra Japa as part of Sandhya Vandanam. Actually, for a person given the Gayatri Mantra during Yajnopavitam, there is no need for any other mantra. Third is Homam, that is Yagyam. Fourth is Devata Pujanam, a ritual, ceremonial, individual, daily veneration of God or a particular Ishtadevata representative of the God containing 16 successive steps known as Shodasa Upachara Puja, done maybe elaborately or in a condensed form of 5 steps of Gandha, Pushpa, Dhupa, Deepa, Naivedana. A further detailed and elaborate method of puja contains 64 steps. Then is the Adityam, meaning Atiti Upachara, that is taking care of visitors. Last is the Vaishvadevam, or taking care of all life forms, mainly feeding them. Valluvar is talking about those who do all this as Aru Tholilar. In a country where the king is not functioning well and the governance is suffering in the bargain, the Brahmins will not be doing their duties well. They will not be doing Veda Adhyanam and Adhyapakam, that is learning and teaching Vedas, and so they will forget their Vedas, which he says in Tamil as Aru Tholilar Nool Marappar. It is clear that Valluvar wants that the government should be strong, the king should rule well, and the Brahmin should not forget their Vedas. While describing the 6 phases of Tamil Deivam Murugan Swami, Nakkirar in Tirumurugaruppadai, a Tamil classic of the Sangha period, says that one of the phases is meant for protecting the Brahmins' yajna activities of those who are conducting the yagyas faultlessly as per the Veda. ஒருமுகம் மந்திரம் விதியின் மரப்புலி வழா அது அந்தணர் வேள்வி ஒர்க்குமே. The aim Perum Kappiyam, or the 5 big literary works about which any Tamilian is rightfully proud of, are mostly related to Jaina and Buddhist religions. Still, they are rather appreciative of the practice of Vedika Dharma. The reason is that the Sanatana Dharma of Veda in practice meant not only tolerance of differing points of view, but accepting others' right to live by what they preach and practice. In Silapadikaram, everywhere the Brahmins' chanting of Vedas and conduct of yagas have been spoken of in glowing terms. This is not simply by observation, but what people very well qualified in these literatures have confirmed. They say that Arana Odayum Sendi Vetalum are other highlighted with much pride. Kovalan, the hero, is a Vaishya by caste. The fact that he used to do many of the Nitya Karma Anushtana is mentioned in passing is the course of the narrative many a time. This clearly indicates that out of the 6 duties meant for a Brahmin, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas were very much doing 5 of them except for Adhyapakam. Many of the Tamil words and phrases much in usage are originating from these practices of Vedakaryam, which are indicative of their wide prevalence in the social fabric of life in Tamil Nadu. Yajanam and Yagya have been referred as Vettal and Velvi from time immemorial. The Yagya Mandapa, or edifice constructed as overhead covering, is called Shayanam, which is referred to as Parappu. This word has come to mean the spread of any area of constructed or enclosed space if the practice of doing yajna was not integral to Tamilians' way of life and imported from elsewhere. It cannot have had such original Tamil words for them. Let us take the case of the Christian Bible. It is called the Christian Veda with due veneration, but instead of words like Velvi and Marai, it continues to be called the Bible. While calling it the Vedam, we are doing so based on an existing word in usage. Other than Bible, we have other Vedas, but other than Velvi, we have no other in lieu word for the act of Yagyam, and there has been no other such activity as part of Tamilians' way of life either. There is clear evidence of the fact that it is not a name coined for an activity important into Tamil way of life. Similarly, Marai is the name for Vedas in Tamil. It is not as though there was something known as Marai earlier, whose name was given to the Vedas. This word Marai is most appropriate for Vedas. Let me explain. The normal meaning of the word Marai in Tamil is something that is hidden. In Vedas, those portions whose meaning should be guarded is declared as Rahasyam. In Upanishad, such portions are marked or notified as Upanishad. Even among Brahmins who are sort of having a license or considered as having full freedom of chanting the Vedas, are cautioned to be careful about some portions and their meaning, like this, that they should not be loudly broadcast for all the sundry to hear, but spoken quietly by the Guru and heard the repeated by the Sishya sitting in close proximity. The Tamil word goes one step beyond and calls the whole of the Vedas as Marai. If some of the licensed authorized practitioners were being told to apply diligence by the word rahasyam meaning secret, the word Marai in Tamil is guarding against exposure of the Vedic statements from all those who are not likely to respect its meaning and purport. From the beginning, the attitude of the Tamils has been one of guarding against democratizing the approach to Vedas, possibly to avoid the eventual likelihood of familiarity breeds contempt, it seems. There is another reason why the word Mare is more than appropriate. All the salubrious effect of the Vedas would not be made known or become clear at once. Many of the inherent and inner benefits would become apparent only with the deepening of understanding. The immediate effects that can be seen are drishtam. Those effects that cannot be seen are adrishtam, that is not seen. Thus, the not seen or adrishtam are hidden and so automatically mare. There is yet another reason as to why the word Mare is most apt. Vedam is the root of our very life, revolving around temples, devotional activities, puja, bhakti, religious celebrations, dhyanam, meditation, and finally jnanam. All these things can be likened with the seen aspects such as a tree, its trunk, branches, big and small leaves, flowers, small of the not yet ripe, fully ripe fruits. These are all the seen portions of the tree of the way of life. The Vedas are the unseen root of this existence, which is all hidden underground. What is hidden is Marai. Naturally, the point to note is that Vedas are and have always been a part and parcel of the Tamilian way of life, and that it is not an imported item of merchandise from the so-called north. Another word of absolute appropriateness is the beautiful and meaningful ottu. That is what is practiced and propagated by word of mouth without ever being written down. This word is in Tirukural. In North Arcot district, there is a township known as Tiruvottur, where Thirugyana Sambandha Perumal converted a male palm tree into a female palm tree. The name Tiruvuttur is the Tamil name for the Sanskrit name of Vedapuri, a name that came into being because Vedas have been sung in praise of God here. Like Marai and Ottu, another Tamil word for Vedas is Aranam. Often in Tirumurais, in praise of the divinity, the phrase Aranan Khan is to be found. During my talks on Vedas, before this, I have already explained as to how words, phrases such as asking, Idu enna Vedavakko, to question the veracity of any statement, calling the owner of a shop or industry as Yajaman, the way a place for the feeding of poor people came to be known as Chatram, and how the word Sangopangam has evolved from the Sanskrit Sa Anga Upanga to mean in its entirety, are all indicative of how Vedas have been part and parcel of Tamilian way of life. In Sanskrit, Vedas have a name as Shruti because of the fact that from generation to generation it is learnt by hearing from the master father in turn corrects it by hearing the chanting by the Sishya and son. Shruti means heard. Possibly it was given to understand that it is not to be written. But in Tamil they coined a word for Vedas as எழுதா Kilavi, expressively forbidding its being written. They were quite clear that it is not to be written. Any religious function is normally called Sadangu in Tamil. The word is so prevalent that any function in which people participate has come to be called a Sadangu. The root word for that is from the fact that the Vedas have 6 parts. Shad is equal to 6. Anga is equal to parts. Shad plus Anga is equal to Sadanga in Tamil. For Vedas, the breaths of life are the mantras. For the mantras, it is the faultless pronunciation known as Akshara Shuddham that is most important. If these are mixed and out of place or out of tune, such a state of affairs will affect the vibrations in the outer atmosphere and the inner nadi. Scientifically, it has been clearly given as to which akshara generates from which part of the body in the Siksha Shastram. What we hear is the sound known as Vaikari. This sound is based on what is known as para that generates from the lower part of the abdomen. From near the Mooladhara at the lowest end of the spinal cord, before this sound comes out as Vaikari, there are 2 stages known as Pashyanti and Madhyama. As you progress in yoga, one could successively hear these sounds Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Para. The rishis who are far advanced in yogic capabilities can hear the subtlest Para. They tune on to those para sounds from the cosmos that are beneficial to humans and all life forms and have given them to us as the mantras. This fact and details about para sounds are very well understood and explained in Tolkappiyam, the oldest literature in Tamil, as recently brought to my notice. The fact that terms para and paishanti were already mentioned in Tamil literature was known to me, but that it was mentioned in Tolkappiyam was news to me. It was very clearly explained that out of the 5 breaths of prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana, it is udana, the going up breath, which creates the vibrations at Mooladhara to initiate the sounds. The fact that it was mentioned in Tolkappiyam was a surprising revelation to me. I have earlier told you as to how the Vedic swaras are chanted with differing emphasis in the pitch, known as Uddattam, Anudattam, Swaritam, and Prasayam. I am told by Tamil Vidwans of repute that these are all well understood and explained in Tolkappiyam. This name of Tolkappiyam I am mentioning is often bandied about with scant courtesy by people who wish to establish their credentials as expert authorities in Tamil. Why should we use Sanskrit language in the temples? Why not use Tamil instead? This was a matter of discussion and debate recently. At that time, some of the Tamil Pandits, well aware of what they were talking about, gave me the following information quoting from Tolkappiyam. When it comes to mantras, they are not to be looked at from the point of view of languages. Here, the language and meaning of the words are all secondary. The divine mantras have relevance, effect, and power based purely on correct intonations and utterance as per the authors of Tolkappiyam. Before I complete the discussion, I should make one more important observation for many of you, and most probably all of you, what I'm going to say now will be an eye opener. Don't you believe that Vedas are written in the Sanskrit language? That is wrong. The language of Vedas is not Sanskrit but Chandas. Chandas does not only mean the poetical metric cadence but the language of the Vedas too. Other than the Vedas, all other poems, literature, epics, kavyas, Puranas, Shastra, and Itihas are all written in Sanskrit, while also being the common folks' spoken medium. But the language of the Vedas is Chandas. Panini, who wrote the Vyakarana Shastra book of grammar, while referring to the language of the Vedas, would say Iti Chandasi. But while referring to all the other things of Sanskrit, would say Iti Loke. Sanskrit, as the name suggests, is a language well made Samskritam. It is a language that is scientifically analyzed, well researched, disciplined, and is of perfect grammar, covering the various aspects of syntax, inflections, and word and sentence formation. Evidently, it means a language of tremendous human effort over a long period of time, ages, and eras. Chandas of the Veda, on the other hand, is a language of cognition and revelation which flashed in the perception of great rishis, as I have been saying for so many days. Devas started using these very salubrious sounds as the language of their communication. So, Vedas have their own grammar, prosody, and stress and intonation patterns. Sanskritam evolved out of the Vedas, but Vedas are not from the Sanskrit language. Later, Sanskrit grew on its own and absorbed words from other languages, which made no difference, however, to the language of the Vedas. The very fact that the language of the Vedas is not Sanskrit may appease those who may be annoyed as to why that language may have a pride of place compared to their mother tongue. The language of the Vedas, which can take care of 2 and 4 legged animals equally and can create the sound vibrations for the welfare of all life forms, and is a repository of a vast array of very useful mantras, is not a language at all. In the sense we think a language to be, it is not meant for communication between humans and or machines. It is not a language of a particular clan or sect. It is not regional but universal, meant for all. The moonlight is commonly beneficial for all equally, unfettered by national and international borders. The sun showers its light and heat uniformly for all people and regions of the world. You do not ask questions such as which nation does the sun belong to? What is the country of origin of the moon? Tolkappir, having said that the Vedas are important because of the fact that they are made up of the sounds evolving out of the para, says that he is not going to talk about those letters and words in his book. He says that he is going to talk about those sounds of Vaikari which is heard and understood by normal human being. The hidden secrets of mantra matters should remain so protected by Brahmins as approved by Tolkappiyar, said the Tamil following song from Tolkappiyam, the 102nd Sutram in Eluthu Adhikaram. I am giving the song and its meaning. எல்லா எழுத்தும் வெளிப்படக் கிளந்து சொல்லிய பள்ளி எழுதுரு வழியில் பிறப்போடு விடுவழி உரைச்சி வார்த்து அக்கத்தெழு வழியிசை அரில் தப நாடி அளவிற் கோடல் அந்தணர் மறைத்தே அகத்திவன் நுவலாது எழுந்து புறத்திசைக்கும் மெய்த்தெறி வழிப்பிசை அளவு நுவன்றிசினே. Carefully follow the meaning now, given here under please. You can quote this to anyone in the world. எல்லா எழுத்தும், all உயிர், மெய் and உயிர் மெய், vowels and consonants, letters வெளிப்பட கிளன்று, emanating from, as already explained, Solliyapalli, in the earlier mentioned 8 places of origin such as head, throat, heart, teeth, lips, tongue, nose and upper palate. Elutharu valiyil, due to the Udana originating at the Mooladhara, Pirappodu, with the birth of Parai, Paisanthi and Madhyamai sounds, Viduvali. While talking about the emergence of the sounds, Urali Varattu, as the breath of Udana affects those parts of the body differently. Agatthi Vali Isai, differently amplify or modulate the original sound coming from the Mooladhara Aril Tapa Nadi, having been faultlessly investigated. Alavir Kodal have the natural modifications of Eduttal, Paduttal, Nalidal, Vilangal respectively, corresponding with Udattam, Anudattam, Swaritam and Prasyam intonations. Andanar Maraithe as known to and hidden by them, the Brahmins Ahadu even Nuvvaladu. Instead of talking about those things here, Rundu Purathisaikum Meiteri Vali Isai, the sound that emerges from the throat for the hearing of others, it is that sound of Vaikari that Alavu Nuvandrisine. It is that Vaikari whose characteristics are what I am concerned in this book of grammar talking about. By the above statement, we gather that all sounds originate from the Moola Adhara, the lower tip of the spinal cord, and that the sounds are generated by the portion of the breath known as Udana, and that they are classified as Parai, Paisanthi, Madhyamai and Vaikari, and that out of them the first 3 are discriminable only to expert yogis, and that it is only Vaikari that is recognizable to normal humans, and that while so emerging, the sounds have different emphasis known as Udattam, Anudattam, Swaritam and Prasyam, known in Tamil as Eduttal, Paduttal, Nalidal and Vilangal, and that these things are rather well covered in the Vedas, and that these things are being kept out of the purview of author Tolkappiyar's consideration, and that he is only concerned with all the possible changes of Vaikari, that is Sanskrit, in his book of grammar. This is clear proof of the fact that the author of Tolkappiyam, the book of Tamil grammar, was fully aware of the subtle nuances of Vedic intonations, which in turn is indicative of the fact that at the least when Tolkappiyam was written, Veda was very much the in thing with Tamilians and South India. KTSV adds, no one has any more right to go back in history just so that they can be narrowly parochial. Vedas are as much part of the Tamilians' life as Tirukural and Tolkappiyam. Thank God and thank Periyawal. If something is in our language, then only it is good. If it is in any other language, it is bad. Such thinking is blindly parochial. This is not Pagattu Arivu either. This is Pagattu Arive, is a Tamil phrase that has been much bandied about. All that it means is to learn by differentiating. By all means, please do so. If there is a noble thought or deed in any language, anywhere in the world, we should absorb it and adopt it to the extent possible in our own life, language, and social milieu. Should be our approach. Ideas have intrinsic values. Language should never be permitted to be a barrier in communication. The whole of religion and religious matters have to be faith related. In criticizing them, on the other hand, this Paguttu Arivu is much talked about. And then, when it comes to accepting noble ideas, this learning by differentiation, that is Poguttu Arivu, is noticeable by its absence. On the one hand, we say that the Tamil culture is on the lines of Yadam Oru Yavarum Kelir, and then we are trying to obliterate from the public's knowledge what has been the bread and butter of Tamil ethos from the time of Tiruvalluvar and Tolkapiyar. If we leave the mantras are not going to be the losers. We are. The river Kaveri comes from Karnataka. We get a life-saving medicine from a foreign country. Will you say that I will drink only local water or take only medicines made in Tamil Nadu? To throw away the universally beneficial mantras on the grounds of it being in a different language as foreign is being dense. That too, when the Vedas have been a part and parcel of Tamil culture and ethos are so many thousands of years. Actually, this is an aberration of the recent past, this anti-Veda thing. I was saying that if we ignore the Veda mantras, it is not a loss for the Vedas. When we drink water, we do not ask a question if it is from our well or the next door neighbor's well. Life saving medicines are not thrown overboard because they are from foreign countries. You do not ask if the sun is from Tamil Nadu or not. The moon does not belong to any caste or religion. The point I am making is that the so called Poguttu Arivalar Aikam is blind enough to ignore real value because they think or are made not to think on the right lines. That what is not Tamil is second rate. Since time immemorial, till as recently as the last century, such was not the case. More than anything else, you will see that Tamil was not anti-Vedas. Purannuru is an accepted classic of very old times. In it, there is mention of a god with long matted hair endlessly chanting the six sangas of the Vedas. I quote, Nandrainda Neel, Nimir Sadai Mudu Mudalvan, Vai Poguttu Ondru, Purinda Ir Irandin, Arunarnda Oru Mudanul. Puram 166. There is another interesting episode. This is mentioned in one of the songs in Purananuru. Once again, Puram 367. The three kings in Tamil Nadu of the Chera, Chola and Pandya kingdoms were always at each other's throat for something or the other. It seems that there was one occasion when they were very civil, amenable and courteous towards each other. That Chola Raja's name itself was closely connected to conduct of yagyas as Rajasuyam Vetta Perunar, Killi Valavan. Avayar party always wanted that these kings should be friendly with each other. Seeing them in such accommodative mood, Avayar was thrilled. It seemed that she said that, oh, that is nice. You three are so pleasantly together like the three fires of Garhapatiyam. Ahavaniyam and Dakshinagni are together in a Brahmin's house. I quote the song now. ஒன்று புரிந்து அடங்கிய இரு பிறப்பாளர் முத்தி புரைய காணத்தக இருந்த கொற்ற வெண்குடை கொடித்தேர் வெந்நீர். Even after the Sangakalam periods, all the kings of Chera, Chola, Pandya and Pallava states uniformly looked after the Brahmins and their requirements. Mostly, they were allotted lands without taxes. Many katikas and patshalas were established and they were given arable lands as donation so that the proceeds from such lands could sustain the running of such organizations. Thus, all these kings were gracious and benign towards nurturing Vedas and related activities. Further, evidence is from the Shaivas and Vaishnavas, Devaram and Nalyara Divya Prabandham songs respectively. As much as these literatures sang in praise of Shiva and Vishnu respectively, they have talked about Vedas and related activities as Devaram and Divya Prabandham are poems soaked in the bhakti rasa. One would expect the karma marga activities to take a secondary or even territorial role of importance. But surprisingly, more than devotional activities, the yajna karmas have been given the pride of place in these. Earlier, I had told you that the language of the Vedas is not Sanskrit. Similarly, I am going to share with you another interesting fact, that is the subject of belief and lack of belief in God. Let us first sort out some of the likely misconceptions about the words in English in this subject. If we take two words, agnostic and atheist, and understand them clearly, then we can proceed with the translation of what Perival says. If you take the words believer, non believer, doubter, free thinker, skeptic, and so on, we can go on and on into an endless loop. Let us draw a line somewhere. Agnostic is the one who believes that it is impossible to know whether there is a God. uh, an atheist is the one who disbelieves or denies the existence of God. Now let us go back to what Perival has to say. Many of us think that Nastikam means atheism, don't we? No. You may continue not to believe in God and still be an Astika. So, what is Astikam? To believe in Veda is Astikam. It does not matter if you do not believe in God. If you believe in the Veda mantras and their powers and do your Nitya Karma Anushtanas and Yajna Karmas, that is good enough. You are in Astika. Say you have understood Vedas only partially and your analysis goes on the following lines. Vedas do not talk of God. It talks of many devatas. They are also another life form like human beings. But by catering for their needs, I can benefit. With this understanding, if you follow the dictates of the Veda and do the karmas accordingly, there will be no problem. You are accepted as an Astiga. Even if you do not do these actions as an offering to God, it is all right. Karma Mimamsagars were like that. They were also accepted as Astigas. Let their understanding of Veda be wrong. Still, as long as they believe in Vedas as the Dharma Pramanam or the rightful thing to do, they are to be considered as Astigas only. At the same time, a very hardcore devotee of Vishnu or Shiva doing daily puja, if he or she seems to be against the Vedas without any further investigation, they can be declared Nastiga. That is how it is given in some of the old literature. To object to or not believe in the Vedic way of life is Nastigam. This was the philosophy of Tirugyana Sambandhamurti. Tirugyana Sambandhamurti was a Shiva Bhakta, one of the leading lights of the 63 Nayanamars. As Kumarswamy Amsam, the younger son of the Parvati Parameshwaras, he had the authority of a Yuvaraja that in his poems he could say Anai Namade to mean it is my order, that those who chant the Kolar Padigam will not be touched by the heinous effects of the planets. So, in Tamil Nadu, his words are like the law of the land. In a very young age, he has visited many of the Shiva Kshetras and done miracles. Mylapore in Chennai has been witness to these miracles. In Pattiswaram, he received the pearl palanquin presented by Parmeshwara himself. From then he used to visit various kshetras being carried on the palanquin with a retinue of 500 singers who were devotees of Shiva. Wherever he went was a continuous celebration and sing song. Those days Jainism and Buddhism were on the ascendancy. They used to preach that Vedas were wrong. To follow Vedas as per those two religions was a waste of time. Here the Jains influenced the king of Pandyas in Madurai and converted him to Jainism. But his wife Mangayarka Arasi and minister Kulachirai remained Shiva Bhaktas. They felt bad about the fact that their king had opted for a very crude version of a religion. They heard about Tirugyana Sambandamurti and his power and influence. They invited him to Madurai with the idea of recovering the king's affiliations back to Shaivism. They were worried about what the Samanas would do to Tirugyana Sambandamurti and the king. The moment he arrived in Madurai, the Samanas invited him for a debate. If you have God's grace, nothing else matters. Governments can change. The earth can move. There will still be nothing to worry or fear. God's will be done. Let alone arrows and missiles, even guns and howitzers will come and fall on your feet with reverence. The country and religion suffer a setback when there is dilution of devotion. If there is one man among you who is the recipient of God's grace, everything else is irrelevant. Tirugyana Sambandamurti was unafraid and ready for the debate. Before going for the debate, he went to the temple of Lord Sundareshwara and sang a padigam of 10 songs. In them, he prayed that he should win over the Jains so as to hold the flag of the god's fame high. In each of the songs at the end, the last two lines were Gyala nin pugare vendum, then Alavayil urayum em adiye. For the details of how the Punal Vadam and Anal Vadam debate based on the flow of the Vaigai river and placing their scripts in fire was conducted, read Deivathin Kural, Volume 1. What was his line of arguments? Did he say that because Jains do not come to Shiva temples, they do not apply the Tiruniru, that is the white ashes, on their foreheads, they do not wear the Rudraksham, they make fun of Shiva's devotees, so for these reasons they should be defeated? No. Then what did he say? His first line is Veda Vilvil Nindanai Seidu Udal, meaning going about decrying Vedas and Velvis. For that reason, he says that he should defeat them in debate. Samanas are Jains, followers of Mahavira, and are known as Jains. Actually, the word is Ramana, the mean those who go to extremes of self-torture. Sra is a joint letter of half S plus half Ra, becomes Ra in Sanskrit, and that in Tamil becomes Samana or Amana. That is how the star month of Shravan becomes Avani in Tamil. Similarly, summer is battle, which becomes Amaram in Tamil. Battlefield is Samar Kalam in Sanskrit, and that becomes Amar Kalam in Tamil. They will wear white dress or roam about naked. So they are called Svetambar or Digambar. So in Tamil, anyone not wearing a cloth is called Ammanakattai. So the Jains are Samanas. Terror are the Theruvadi Buddhists. In the first song, first line itself, Samandar is grouping together these Amanas and Theras, saying that they are anti-Vedas and Yagnas. He is not even talking about their not having devotion towards Shiva. In the same padikam of 10 songs, in another song, he even goes to the extent of calling them great sinners who do not follow the Vedas in as many words, Marai Vadakkam Illada Maha Pavigal. Ozhukkam is Acharam and Vadakkam is Anushtanam. So Marai Vadakkam means Vaidika Anushtanam. Not having the practice is Mahapapam. Then he goes on to say, Parithalek Kariyar Parithalekayar Pai Udukkayar. Murayavadu Seyya. He calls them as Parithalikayar. This means those who are pulling their hair out of their heads. Do you know why? Vidyaranya Swamigal has written Bhashyam for the Vedas. He was a master of many arts and crafts. He is the power which established the Vijayanagara Empire. He has written a book by the name Sarva Darshana Sangraha. Darshana means religion. It also means seeing. Seeing things as they truly are is religion. He has talked about all the religions of that time. In that, while talking about Jains, he says that they do what is known as Kesha Ulanjanam, is to pull out hair. Their belief is that for all the sins of the past, they have to make amends by pulling their hair out one by one. When you suffer, when you experience self inflicted pain, the weight of your misdeeds are cancelled out. To pull out the hair from one's head is very painful. So they will do that to lessen the load of sins. They do not wear clothes, they will wear the matting of grass hay. That is why he is calling them Parithalekayar, Pai Udakkayar. But they are adding to their sins by staying out of the Veda observance and being disparaging of yagas and such activities. Out of the 10 songs, in the first 7 or 8, he stopped short of criticizing them for lack of devotion to Shiva. He takes them to task for their anti Veda and anti Brahmanism. Then, towards the end, he talks about their lacking in Shiva Bhakti. It seems that they would avoid the very air that might have brushed against the bodies of Shiva devotees. நீற்று மேனியராயினர் மேலுற்ற காற்று கொள்ளவும் நில்லா அமனகர். Only in the end is there not being a devotee of Shiva under criticism. அன்று முப்பரம் செற்ற அழக நின் துன்று பொற்கழல் பேனா அருகரை. Thus he has given greater priority to Vedic Anushtana and Yajna Karmas. The last word Arugarai is the above quoted line includes Jains and Buddhists. Arahat is top, Muni is the line of Buddhists. The main god in Jains too is called Arahat. The word in Tamil Arugar is a common one for both these religionists. In both Tevaram and Divya Prabandham, wherever there is a mention of Brahmins, there is much praise that they are all versed in Yajna Karma Anushtana. For example, Karuvanga Eriyombi Kaliyai Varame, Serrar Vara Thillai, to mean Thillai, that is Chidambaram in Tamil Nadu, is such a place where Brahmins, having learned the Vedas, are conducting yagas as per that and thus are chasing away the approach of the Kali. In the Padigam on Omam Buliyur, he talks much about the conduct of homams in very well prepared yagashalas of perfect dimensions. If anyone says that Samandar is a Brahmin and so it is but natural for him to praise Brahmin-like activities, I would ask you to read what Appar, a non-Brahmin, has to say. He says, Vediya Veda Gita, Vedangal Nangum Kondu, Vinnavar Paravi Etta, Vedattan Enbar Velviyulan Enbar, Vedanayagan Vediyar Nayagan. These are all quotations from Appar's writing. He says that God himself is doing Veda Adhyayanam. Veda Modi Vandu Il Pugundar Vedangal Velvi Bayandar Polum. Appar also has sung in praise of Omum Puliyur as a place where plenty of homams were conducted all of the time. Iri Mundru Mutti are the 3 fires in each Brahmin's home. Garhapatyam, Ahavaniyam and Dakshinagni are the 3 Agni Kundams that he is required to maintain. Appar knew about these things so intimately that he says, Odimiga Andanargal Erimundru Ombum, Uyarpugal Artharum Omam Buliyur, Ondriya Sir Irupirappar, Mutti Ombum, Uyarpugal Nan Mare Omam Buliyur. In Divya Prabandham too, in many places, just to describe the general atmosphere of the city or town where the Perumal has taken Nivas residence, they would have said as to how the fragrant smoke arising out of innumerable homokundams would have covered the whole sky. Here too, without any aversion or difference of caste or creed, the non Brahmins were Alvars and they would have sung encomiums of praise of Vedic activities. Tirumangai Alvar was very much a non Brahmin. He, while talking about Perumal, says, Sandokan Poriyan Aindare Lombu Taitriyan Samavedi. Thus, he addresses God with the names of Upanishads of the branches of the Vedas or the Veda itself, such as Chandogya, Purya, Taitriya, and Samavedi. If Upper talked about Mutti and three fires, Tirumangai Alvar goes deeper into details which many Brahmins themselves may not be aware. In addition to those three fires, two more fires are maintained known as Sabhyam and Avasthyam. These five fires are known as Panchagni. He calls Aintadal Ombuvattu. Like Omambuliyar is spoken highly of in Tevaram in Divya Prabandham, Tirunangur and Tirunariyur are spoken with great admiration repeatedly for the fact that they are places where Brahmins who abide with the Vedic traditions are living. I am quoting some of their writings. உண்மை மிகு மறையோடு நற்கலைகள் நிறை பொறைகள் உதவு கொடை என்றவற்றின் ஒழிவில்லா பெரிய வன்மை மிகு மறையவர்கள் மலிவைவது நாங்கூர் நாத்தொழில் மறை வல்லார்கள் நயந்த அறம் பயந்த வன்கை தீத்தொழில் பயிலு நாங்கூர் சொல் ஆறு சுருதி முறை ஓதிஸ் சோமு செய்யும் தொழிலினோர் நல்லார் மறையோர் பலர் வாழும் நரையூர் வேத நான்கு ஐந்து வேள்வி அங்கம் ஆறு இசை ஏழ் நடையாவல்ல அந்தனர் வாழ் நரையூர். In the above quotes, Tamil is quite easily understandable. Marayavaragal and Andanar mean Brahmins. Somu is Somayagam. Veda Nangu are four Vedas. Aindu Velvi are the five fires as well as the fivefold Brahma Yagnam. Angam Aru are the six parts of the Vedas. Isai Elu are the Sapta Swaras of music. In the Western music, what is the octave is Sapta Swaras in Indian music because in the arrangement of Sarigama Padanisa, the English note anyhow is a repetition of the first note in the higher octave. In Tamil, there is the book of grammar, Tolkappiyam, about which we have seen already in the earlier discussions. It was written by one of the 12 Sishyas of Agastya Rishi, whose name was Tirunadumagni. Panam Barnar has written a special commentary on this book in which are the lines Arangare Navin Nanmari Murtriya Adankottu Asan. For this, Nachinarakku Inniyar, while writing the commentary, says as follows. Here the word Nanmarai does not mean Rik, Yajus, Sama, Atharvana Vedas. What was an ocean of Vedas was regrouped into four parts by Vyasa. For the sake of the people of Kali Yuga, with shorter life, such disease and lesser understanding and comprehension, Tolkappiyam dates to that period. So here, Nanmarai refers to the older division of Vedas being Taitriyam, Podikam, Talavakaram and Samam. In the Divya Prabandham, Sandokam is Samavedam, Puriya is the above quoted Podikam. Thus, Talavakaram, Taitriyam and Puriyam are respectively the names of the branches of Sama, Krishna, Yajur and Rig Vedas. Among the Keralite Nambudri Brahmins, everybody does Veda Adhyayanam. Even those involved in other professions would be those who would have systematically learned the Vedas in their childhood. The earlier chief minister and communist leader E.M.S. Nambudri Pada was also one who had done Veda Adhyayanam. Till very recently, brahmacharis would wear a loincloth known as Kaupinam, the threads of Upavitam with a small bit piece of deer skin attached, hold a dandam in their hands, and do the Samhita Danam without fail among Nambudaris. Rigvedis are more. In one of their palm leaf copies of Rigveda, it was titled Poriyam. From this only it was gathered that Poriyam is the earlier name of Rigveda. It is the same Paudikam mentioned by Nachinark Iniyar while commenting on Tolkappiyam. Adi Shankara Bhagavad Padal took birth in the Nambudri Brahmin family in Khaladi. That Nambudris are still maintaining a close affinity to Vedic traditions is true indeed. After all, when Parameshwara himself had to come down to the earth in human form, when many odd movements in the name of religions were rampant and he had the task of re-establishing the Vedic order, it is a Nambudiri family that he selected to be born in. In his time, Malayalam as a language had not evolved. It was Tamil, the prevalent language of those days there. Sundaramurti Swamigal's close friend Seruman Perumal Nayanar composed that Tirukailaya Jnana Ula in the Tamil language only. At that time, he was ruling over his kingdom from Tiruvanjay Kalam. Kulasekara Alvar was who has composed the Perumal Tirumuri in Nalayira Divya Prabandham in Tamil, was also a king ruling over his kingdom from Tiruvananthapuram. Much before this, when Lord Parmeshwara himself had to take birth some 2000 years before, the whole of Kerala was Tamil speaking only. In the whole of India, it was here in South India, Kerala as the name of the state and Malayalam as the language were to evolve much later, where Vedas were much prevalent. The fact that it was here that Parmeshwara took birth is indicative of the very ancient affinity of Tamil Nadu and Vedic way of life. Today, that there is more Veda Adhyayanam in Kerala is due to its being a part of Tamil Nadu earlier. In recent times, I have noticed that in Andhra Pradesh similarly, there is more Veda Adhyayanam. The reason for this is that when during the time of Chola Empire's influence towards north was more, there were more social interactions between Cholas and Andhras. Plenty of Vedavids were enabled to move into many of the Andhra cities. It is just sheer bad luck that the recent 100 years or so that the so-called Paguttarivu, Aikam and anti-Brahmanism has become more rampant in Tamil Nadu itself. But before that, the inner Tamil land has exported many experts of Veda to Kerala, Andhra and Karnataka states. The Dravids of Karnataka and Dravidalu of Andhra Pradesh are Brahmins who migrated to those places from Tamil Nadu only. In Tamil Nadu, from time immemorial, there have been the Shanmada, that is the 6 religions of Shaivam, Vaishnavam, Saktam, Sauram, Ganapatyam and Kaumaram flourishing without any feeling that they are different from Hinduism, that is Sanatana Dharma. In addition to these Saiva Siddhantam, Sankyam, Yogam, Nvayam, Vaishikam, Mantra and Tantra have also been there, all based on Veda only. There has also been some following of local deities too, like the Grama Devata and Pattina Devatas, who somehow would be related to Shiva or Vishnu or Shakti. The so-called modern research into our religion, starting with the foreigners, especially Britishers, have cooked up the canard of Aryan invasion of India with all sorts of frills added to it. A true analysis of Sanskrit and Tamil literature will conclusively disprove these deliberately misleading stories. They say that Shastras should not be accepted with blind belief, but the reality has been well hidden behind the smoke screen created by such vested interests that people have come to accept their fiction as truth without any investigation. It is a sad fact that these fictitious stories are being blindly believed. Yes, Vedas have many things which are to be followed purely based on trust and faith. They are not to be analyzed with our limited capabilities. But there are portions of the Vedas which are to be analyzed and investigated with differentiation and common sense. In addition, if we study the early literature of our own mother tongue, we will know that these stories about Aryan and Dravidian races are completely baseless and that there has been no separate Aryan and Tamil or Dravidian religion. That is South India, so much of hate and distrust in Shastras have come into being is a sad state of affairs. We should pray to Parameshwara that this doubt and distrust should go, and for the sake of all the worlds and for all life forms, the traditional Vedic way of life should again thrive and flourish. Here in South India, already many Veda Pathshalas have disappeared without a trace. We should not let others go uncared for. There is no other bigger duty than this for us. All our brains, power, energy, influence, and money should be mustered and directed towards efforts that, wherever the Vedic branches are still surviving, may be given first aid, revived, refurbished, and rejuvenated. The countless branches of Vedas have now come to what can be counted with our fingers. At least these should be guarded against becoming endangered species and extinct for the next generation. Now, KTSV adds, at least in Hyderabad, I have noticed that in the period, say, about 200 years back, the very Bhakti movement in Tamil Nadu was under tremendous pressure from the so called Paguttu Arivu Aikyam. Many devotees, not necessarily Brahmins, felt suffocated within the Tamil land and moved out into neighboring areas, which later became Kerala, Karnataka, and Andhra. In these neighboring lands, they experienced greater freedom to pursue their calls as they wished. In Hyderabad, the Hanuman temple of Tirumalgiri and Murugan temple of Venkatapuram in Secunderabad are the creations of saintly devotees who came from Tamil Nadu under these circumstances. Om Shri Mahaperiva Sharanam.